But to some good news, the Prime Minister today finally announced the details of his $1 billion package of drought relief, not just for farmers, but their communities.
Direct cash assistance through the farm household allowance. This puts food on the table, it helps keep kids in school. And putting $1 million into each of these shires, direct cash injection into these communities. Over $1 billion in new interest-free loans that will be made available to farmers and grazing families, as well as small businesses within local communities that are dependent and service the agricultural sector. We will be releasing 100 gigalitres along the Murray that will be made available at discounted rates to farmers along the Murray to grow fodder.
To discuss this and a twist they'll come to, the panel, Bruce Hawker, who helped to run Labor campaigns federally and state very successfully too, and is now head of the Campaigns and Communications Group, and Graham Morris, guru and former Chief of Staff to Prime Minister John Howard. Graham, a good package?
I thought it was. That's a couple of billion now. And I think the important thing this time is not just farmers, it's small business, it's local government, and by getting local government people doing things or local government doing things, they can employ people, whether it's on roads or doing this, or, so it keeps people in the community. And Andrew, I went to actually, all my high school was an agricultural boarding school out in the middle of the bush in New South Wales. And they tell me that this year and next year the enrolments are terrible, and some of this help for boarding schools for country people I think is also a terrific idea. But we shouldn't live in Pollyanna land. You know, at any given time, good times or bad times, people leave the land. And it's a fact of life. In South Australia, in some parts of South Australia, almost got rock farms. In the Riverina, some of the soil changes every 10 metres, so it's useless for cropping. And in parts of New South Wales and Queensland, we're almost on the border of a desert. So all of this is really aimed at those people who will prosper when it rains, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, one of the towns I grew up in, Tarcoola, no longer exists. My uncle's farm no longer is a farm. Bruce Hawker, any problems with this package that you can see?
Look, I think it was pretty late getting to the farm gate. That's my main concern about it. I think they had to be pushed really hard, both by Labor and I think by elements in the National Party. But no, essentially this is what government should do when times are tough, you know, and we have had these in the past and we'll have them again in the future. Then farmers and people in rural communities do need support. It's the nature of the beast in many ways that that our climate is very erratic and probably becoming more erratic, and we're going to have to see more of this, not less, as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, Graham, as a country boy, you know, this would have been a great day for the country, but the Victorian government chose the very same day to announce that it's going to ban logging in native forests over the next decade. 4,700 jobs gone in what actually is the most sustainable industry you can get. Growing trees, cutting them, growing them back again. So, the country today won some and it lost some.
Well, lucky for Victorians and all those thousands of people in the timber industry, the Victorian Premier won't be there in 2030. Look, this is really odd. On a day when the Federal Labor Party releases this huge report on why they lost an election, and part of it was because they'd let down Middle Australia, they'd let down workers, they'd let down low-paid people, and bugger me, they also let down miners. How can the Labor Party let down miners? And now we've got Premier Andrews having a go at the timber industry. Who's next? The shearers?
I'll tell you who's next. It'll be Portland if that smelter goes under thanks to global warming policies. But Bruce, it's a strange timing, isn't it? Farmers get this handout or this help, and meanwhile loggers, they can go cry for another job.
Well, probably the Prime Minister wasn't informing the Premier about his announcement today, but look, plantation growth and plantation timber is the way to go. In New South Wales, when Bob Carr was Premier, I remember there was a major review and then rearrangement of the timber industry, and it was done in conjunction with the timber unions and timber industry figures and the sawmills, and it was done pretty smoothly, and that meant withdrawing from a lot of old growth forests and going into plantations. So it can be done. It seems to me that 10 years is a pretty long lead-in period anyway. And I don't have any great problems with it, I've got to say, as long as you keep creating more jobs in that industry. And you can do it with plantations.
Yeah, but it's a sustainable industry, and it was only doing a fraction of 1% of the forest. It'd have to go for a long, long time before, you know, by that time the forest grows back. But
well,
anyway,
it takes a long time for old growth to regrow. It takes a long time.
Of course. And
30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be going back there for another 100 in the way that they were going with the rotation.